Okay, let's try this again. See if this is going to be working. All right, let's see. So today we're going to look at 35206. Look at this area for 4-bedroom homes. Just double check it.
Let's try this again.
Okay, all right. Well, the audio is working. Good. Finally, it's working. All right, so today I picked out 35206. This is 209 86th Place South. And I saw this property and I said, oh, this is a pretty well renovated property, just given the finishes that I see. Relatively turnkey. You're not really doing too much. It's got all the nice finishes that you would expect from a home. Well, is that a closet? Okay. With that space, some carpeting. You could replace that if you really want. Also, there's some back storage there. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to do for this property. We're going to try to figure out whether or not this property will cash flow, assuming a conventional sale. Okay. Let me just connect the chat here just in case anybody has any questions. All right. So for this property, let's go ahead and plug in the details here. This property is listed for $159,500. 159,500. For our renovations, let's go to our rehab calculator spreadsheet right here. I usually set aside $1,500 for the roof, just in case there's any issues. $500 for the landscaping, and then I got no money needed to repaint the place. This probably looks pretty turnkey. $1,484. I might say for flooring, I'm gonna have them inspected, but I'm assuming maybe I only need to change the flooring for about 300 square feet. It might be less than that, but I want to set aside some money in case there's some carpet that's hiding some issues here. And then I got 2 bathrooms that I'm going to put in high pressure flush toilets. And this allows me to reduce the amount of clogged toilet calls on this property. Hi, Soleil. What are you doing?
Hi.
You want to say hi? Okay, you say hi. What kind of deal? Okay. We're analyzing properties, okay? Yes?
Okay.
Okay. How many toilets do we need? 1 or 2?
1, 2.
2? Wow, that's really smart. How did you know? Okay, then we're going to keep going, and then we're going to look at. So we got $6,300.
Daddy.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. Thank you.
Daddy.
Okay, thank you. Want to go back to grandma? Thank you. Thanks for helping. Thank you. Okay, so now that we got the rehab in here for about $6,000, what we're going to do next is we're going to get the rent, right? Just going down the spreadsheet, going down in order, and figuring out what else do we need. So for our rent, the first thing we're going to do is look at what county this property is in. And we do that just by doing a control find, looking at the word county. And this is in Jefferson County. All right, so we're going to Google HUD FMR, HUD FMR. And we'll click on the first link where it says fair market rents. We're going to scroll down here and click access to small area FMRs. FRMR stands for fair market rents. We'll click on this link. It says FY 2025, small area FMRs. And this is going to allow us to select the state and then select the county, which we said was Jefferson County. Now you can get a by bedroom count, a by zip code, what the maximum rent is. And you see right here that 35206, a 3-bed is $1,500 and a 4-bed is $1,700. $1,500 and $1,700, just a little bit higher than the 35208 that we're looking at the other day, but that's good to know because this is why we analyze the data, right? We understand which zip codes tend to have higher rent ceilings. After we get the rent ceiling, we have to get the market rents. To get the market rents, we go to affordablehousing.com, we go to the owner section, we go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address to bedroom count, and click on get estimate. And then you're going to see that this number on the bottom right, that's the number we care most about. It says that for 25 units within a 3.11 mile radius, the average rent is $1,433. So let's write this one down. $1,433. 1,433. And then the other 3 numbers are going to be 1940, 1367, and 1278. Now, with all of these details here, I have to use the lower of the 2 when I compare the rents. And I'm going to use $1,400 for today. Now, that's because of 2 things. One, the $1,700 rent ceiling typically includes utilities. So if you don't provide utilities, you got to back out the utility allowance for that number. Now, if you want to use the market rent, you have to make sure it's a reasonable rent. And for you to determine what a reasonable rent is, you have to go to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook. So this is the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook. HCV is what it stands for, right? And Housing Choice Voucher is what was previously known as Section 8. They rebranded it to Housing Choice Voucher because of all the negative connotation that was associated with Section 8. So in Section 2.2, it says that in conducting rent reasonableness, the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable unassisted units. So you have the size, you have the unit type. Obviously, that stuff matters. But if you think about it, right, if you look at these 25 units, chances are these are all single-family homes because you don't really see 4-bedroom apartments being built that often. So that's why we have this as $1,400 as the reasonable rent in the situation. Again, all I'm trying to do is figure out whether or not this property is worth my time to investigate further. Meaning, is it worth my time to send someone out there to get photos? Is it worth my time getting a contractor out there to give me a bid? Because they might charge me $350 just to go give me a bid, right? You have to pay them for their time. So let's go ahead and look at this deal. So now that I got my $1,400 as my rent, because that's a lower of two, I'm gonna get my taxes and my insurance. For taxes and insurance, I'm simply just going to take whatever is listed out over here in the monthly payment calculator. So 149 is the property tax and 124 is in insurance. So 149 goes to B28 for the property taxes. And then the homeowner insurance is 124. So I'm going to do equals 124 times 1.2. And I'm multiplying by 1.2 because I'm expecting that the insurance estimate to cost more money. So when you multiply by 1.2, that's how you get to 148.8. And that's because a investment property is typically viewed as a riskier investment whenever you are transitioning from a primary residence property to an investment property, right? Insurance company views that as a higher risk, so they're going to charge you more premium. So that's why I'm adding a 20% premium here. Then I'm setting aside 10% of the maintenance every single month for CapEx, future replacement. So that's why I got 10% right here. And then for property management, I got 10% set aside for my property management. So that's about $140. And I got 5% for vacancy because I know somebody moves out eventually. Now, this maintenance is probably really, really important. If you don't set aside this money every single month for future repair, you will be grossly overestimating your profitability because you're underestimating your expenses, right? I just had a roof leak from a big rainstorm and it caused a huge leak. It might cost me 10, 15 grand. I'm still waiting for the bid to come back right now for the total roof replacement. But that's something that you have to figure out. And whether or not it's going to be worth your time is you have to figure out, hey, if I set aside $140 every single month, is it still going to be a deal? So you got to do it. This money does not belong to you. So the next thing we want to do is, now that we've got our expenses in, we've got to figure out our financing. So in F19, I put in 25% down payment percentage. I'm going to put in my asking price multiplied by my down payment percentage. And that's how it's going to get me to 39.9K of down payment, which means that in K6, I'm going to equals B4, which is my asking price, minus E19, which is my down payment to the seller. And that's how I get to $119,000. At 8% interest rate, let's just say put the start date at 8/26. So I'll just use today's date for today. The flow will start today. And that's how I can get to my ultimate calculation of how much this property is going to cash flow. So if I rent out as a 4-bedroom for $1,400 and my cash flow is now negative $126 a month because of all of the expenses, that's not a deal because it's negative 3%, right? That's not a deal for me personally, but somebody that might be buying this property as a primary residence might have a very different idea on what a deal looks like. So obviously this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm simply showing you all the work I do every single day to just look at a deal. So when I have 4 bedrooms of $1,400, that's not a deal. So how do I think about this, right? How would I think this, what price or what set of terms would make this property a deal? So if watch what happens to this cash on cash return in E9 as I lower my asking price. If I go to $100,000, now all of a sudden this property is worth a 7% return. If I go to 90 grand, now all of a sudden it's 9.9. So this property, assuming everything else stay constant, I'm still renting out for $1,400. I am now going to cash for $257 a month, and this is now a 9.9% return, which is closer to my required return of 10%. But I would have to buy this property for $90,000, assuming a rehab of $6,360 again, 25% down and 8% interest rate. Okay. Now, what if the interest rate went down, right? Because all this talks about interest rates going down. If I lower this interest rate to 7% in K7, watch what happens to my E9. So if I say interest rates went down by 1 point from 8 to 7%, this property that I was buying at 90 grand is now at 11.7% return. So what does this mean? I could probably move up my willingness to pay. So if I go to 95 grand now, that's still a 10.3% return, 96 grand. So this tells me that, hey, because the interest rates dropped by 1%, my willingness to pay for the property increased by $6,000 because it still gets me the same cash and cash return of 10%. Now, hopefully that makes sense, right? Again, all I'm trying to show you is that you take emotion out of the deal and think about it. Hey, I can, depending on the circumstances, right? Focusing strictly on the numbers. If the interest rate went down by 1%, I'm now willing to pay extra $6,000. And obviously this is depending on everything else staying constant, right? If your taxes were lower or your insurance estimate was lower, you might be willing to pay more. But again, this is you just simply figuring out how to take emotions out of the analysis and how to look at a deal objectively to figure out what levers can you pull to make something that might not have been a deal into a deal now. I'll probably go through one more scenario. And this is the scenario that I used to be really, really afraid of. My thought was, hey, what if my rehab, I don't know, tripled, right? Let's say I go to my B6 line and I multiply by 3, and now my rehab is 19 grand, right? If you were under contract for this deal and you had an inspection contingency, you still might be really afraid, but how do you look about and approach the problem? Well, assuming the interest rate is still 7%, right? Because we're holding that constant from the last scenario. Now, all of a sudden, my cash and cash return is now 7.2% instead of 10% because my rehab tripled. So if I now have to lower my purchase price to 80 grand, now what happened? Now all of a sudden it's still a deal. So even though my rehab tripled to 19 grand, right? Assuming 25% down and 7% interest rate, and I can still rent it out as a 4-bedroom for $1,400, I can still cash flow $353 a month with a 10.3% return if I can get a credit of $16,000. So this is how you can go to your seller and say, hey, we opened up the walls, we found some issues. Your house probably looked really, really pretty on the outside, but I found out after doing a sewer scope that I had to replace the sewer line. That's going to cost X amount of money. I found there's a patch in the roof that could be potentially leaking. Now I had to replace the whole roof. I found that your AC just crapped the bed when I went out to do an inspection and the AC no longer works, right? So these are all the scenarios that you have to play through to figure out whether or not this property is going to be a deal or not. So, and that's what I want to go through with all of you today and just kind of go through the scenarios so that you understand whether or not something is a deal or not. Okay. All right. I hope you all have an amazing day. I hope you guys spend some quality time with your family and friends today, because that's what life is all about. I'll be back here again tomorrow for day 332. And of course, you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, put in your name, email, and phone number. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. Full disclosure, I didn't make all the spreadsheets from scratch. I got a few different copies. I combined them, I modified them, I tweaked them. And that's how I was able to analyze my deals the fastest way. All right. I hope you all have an amazing day. I'll be back again tomorrow for day 332. Have a good one, everybody.